The following video was filmed earlier before I got the news that the submarine people who went to go see the Titanic has been found, and everyone on board did not survive. I filmed this without knowing that it had been found at the time, so putting this part here first. That it's just been found, and there were no survivors. My heart goes out to the people on board and to their families and friends, and don't want this video to be taken as if I'm poking fun at the situation. That I filmed this with the intention to make this the first video in a video series about Titanic and rereading from my books. Um, I do not want people to think that I'm making this because I think that the situation is funny. So please enjoy this video, and my condolences to everyone affected by this recent tragedy with the submarine and its loss of unfortunate life. Welcome everyone to another video, and in this video I want to read a book. It's a book about the Titanic, a book that I first read in the 4th grade, and the book that actually got me interested in the Titanic. As it stands now, I'm an amateur Titanic historian, and by amateur I mean I'm not professional, and I've read through the history of the ship and the disaster of it sinking ever since I was in 4th grade, and I've read multiple books, been to multiple photographs, and looked at all kinds of archival stuff with Titanic, and I know quite a lot about the ship. But I want to start this video off with the book that started it all with my fascination of the Titanic, and it is called The Titanic: Lost and Found. Now, this is not the original book that I owned in the 4th grade, but it is the same book, just a different copy of the book. The copy I had, the cover art was much different. It was darker, and it didn't have all this orange lettering and stuff. This is a more modern reproduction copy of the book, but it's the same book. And it's a kid's book, so it's more condensed for the sake of it being a kid's book. But I want to start off with this book because this was the first book I ever read about Titanic. And I want to make this like a video series where I read certain things from my collection of Titanic books. I think it'd be fun. So here we go. It is April 10th, 1912. The whole world is talking about this amazing new ship. Its name is the Titanic. The ship is getting ready to leave on its first trip across the ocean. It is going all the way from England to America. Wabam! Titanic. Newspapers call the Titanic the Wonder Ship. They say it is like a floating palace. The Titanic has restaurants, a post office, even a gym with a toy camel to ride. This picture shows the ship as if it were sliced open. The fancy rooms are on the top decks. On the lowest deck, you can see the squash court and the swimming pool, which, oddly enough, is still full of water. There's your joke. And a wabam! Titanic interior. The Titanic is the biggest ship in the world that the world has ever seen at the time. At the time. The ship is almost 4 city blocks long and is as tall as an 11-story building. Very large. Best of all, experts say the Titanic is the safest ship ever, at the time and for the most part. They say it cannot sink. It was not unsinkable, it was practically unsinkable, but I digress. Why? The ship doesn't have one bottom, it has two. One is inside the other, which is true. The lowest part of the Titanic is divided into 16 watertight compartments. If one compartment starts to flood, the captain can just pull a switch and a thick steel door will shut. The water will be trapped. It cannot flood the rest of the ship. 2 or 3 or even 4 compartments can be full of water. Still, the Titanic will float. True. Wabam! She's large and in charge. Well, she was. The Titanic has another nickname, the Rich Man Special. Some of the richest people in the world are sailing on the Titanic. Their tickets cost more money than a sailor earns in a lifetime. They're very rich people. Not all the passengers are rich. Some have very little money. They are not traveling for fun. They are going off to find a new home in America. Wabam! The people of different social classes. At last, the big moment comes. The Titanic is ready to sail. Crowds line the shore, flags wave, a band is playing, passengers come out on the deck. They wave goodbye to their friends, the engines roar. Slowly, the ship steams out of the harbor. The Titanic has begun its first voyage, but no one guesses this will also be its last. Wabam! Chapter 2 Iceberg. It is April 14th, 1912. The Titanic is in the icy waters off the coast of Canada, the North Atlantic. It is almost midnight. The ship is quiet. The sea is smooth as glass. The air is biting cold. And it doesn't say it here, but there was also a moonless night. The passengers have had a good dinner. Some of them are still up playing cards. Most are asleep in their rooms. It is a good night to be inside. But the lookout must stay up, must watch for danger. He is high above the ship in the crow's nest. He stares into the darkness. Suddenly, the lookout sees a dark shape. It is a mountain of ice, and the Titanic is heading right into it. The lookout rings an alarm. He calls out, "Iceberg! Straight ahead!" Wabam! In all its icy terror. A seaman is below steering the ship. He tries to turn the ship away, but it is too late. The giant iceberg scrapes along the side of the ship. There is a bump, a grinding noise. It doesn't seem like much. Some people don't even notice, which is true. But the captain hurries from his room. He goes down below. He wants to see if the ship is hurt. Soon he learns the terrible truth. The iceberg has hurt the ship badly. Water is pouring in. 5 of the watertight compartments are already flooded, and that is too many. Nothing can be done now. It seems impossible, but it is true. The Titanic is going to sink. Wabam. The captain gives his orders: wake the passengers, radio for help, and make the lifeboats ready. The captain is ready, is afraid. He knows that 2,227 people are on board, and there are only enough lifeboats for 1,100 of them. The passengers do not know this. As people come out on the deck, they laugh and joke. Some are in evening gowns, others wear life jackets over pajamas, but they are not worried. They still think that they are on a ship that cannot sink. The fools! The fools! Wabam! Get in the lifeboats, the sailor tells them. Women and children go first. Men go only if there is room. Many do not want to get in. The big ship seems so safe. The little lifeboats do not. The sailors are in a hurry. They know there is trouble. They rush people into the lifeboats. Some are only half full, but the sailors lower them anyway. Many passengers are far from the lifeboats. They are the poor ones. The rooms are down below. They know there is trouble too, but they do not know where to go. If you try to find their way, they go upstairs and down halls. Some are helped by seamen, but most just wait below. In the radio room, the operator calls for help. Other ships answer, but they are many, many miles away. One ship is not far away. Its name is the Californian. This ship is only 10 miles from Titanic. It could reach the sinking ship in minutes and save everyone. The Titanic's operator calls again and again, but the Californian does not answer. It is late at night and the ship's radio is turned off. No one on board hears the calls for help. The Titanic tries to signal the Californian and it sets off rockets that look like fireworks. Sailors in the Californian see the rockets, but they do not understand that the Titanic is in trouble, so they do not come. It's before I showed the picture. The thing with the Californian, the Titanic tried using more slant, but there was a problem with a Horizon Mirage type of thing, and they couldn't see it all that well, and they weren't firing their rockets the way they should have been fired in the amount of time they should have been fired to signal distress. So the Californian sailors were very confused of what was happening and didn't know what they were actually seeing. But wabam anyway. On the Titanic, the band is playing, the music is cheerful, but people are afraid now. The deck is slanting under their feet. The ship tilts more and more. The lower decks are underwater. Two lifeboats are left, but the sailors cannot get them loose. Hundreds and hundreds of people are still on board, and by now they know the end is near. An old couple holds hands. The wife will not leave her husband. One man puts on his last clothes, saying, "I will die like a gentleman." Wabam. Some people jump into the icy water. A few are lucky. They reach a lifeboat. The people on the lifeboats row away from the Titanic. Everyone is staring at the beautiful ship. Its lights are sparkling. The lively music drifts across the water. Wabam. Then the music changes. The band plays a hymn. One end of the huge ship slides slowly into the ocean. The music stops. There is a great roaring noise. A million sparks fill the air. The other end of the ship swings straight up. And for a moment, the Titanic stays pointed at the stars. Then it disappears under the black water. Wabam. Chapter 3. Never Again. It is 2:20 a.m. on April 15th. The Titanic is gone. The people in the lifeboat stare into the night. The sky is full of shooting stars, but it is dark, and it is bitter, bitter cold. Most of the lifeboats have drifted away from each other. People just wait. They try to get warm. Some have fur coats. Others are wearing bathrobes and slippers. One man is in nothing but his underwear. Coldest of all are the ones who jumped from the ship and swam to a boat. Their hair and clothes are frosted with ice. Wabam. One lifeboat is upside down. About 30 men are standing on it. They lean this way and that to keep the boat from sinking. Icy waves splash against their legs. One lifeboat goes back to try and help. They save one man. He is floating on a wooden door. They do not find many others. No one can last long in freezing water. About 15 to 30 minutes at best. 30 minutes if you're in tip top physical condition and you are a professional swimmer. Hours pass. The sky grows lighter. It seems as if help will never come. Then suddenly a light flashes, and another. It is a ship, the Carpathia. It has come from 58 miles away. Everyone waves and cheers. They make torches. They burn paper handkerchiefs, anything they want to make the ship see them. The sun begins to rise. There are icebergs all around. The rescue ship almost hits one, but it turns just in time. The ship keeps heading towards the lifeboats. Help has finally come. Yes, the Carpathia, the rescue ship, ruined her engines, I might add, because the captain of the Carpathia made sure that thing was going faster than she was supposed to get there as quickly as they could. So good on them. They turned all the heat off in order so the ship could have more steam to go. All eyes are on the rescue ship. Boat by boat, the people are taken aboard. The sea is rough and it takes many hours, but at last everyone is safe. Soon the news flashes all around the world. The unsinkable Titanic has sunk. More than 2,200 people set out. Only 705 are rescued, approximately. I think it's between 700 and 711. How? Why? No one can understand. When the rescue ship reaches New York, 40,000 people are waiting. The Titanic survivors tell their stories. The world learns the truth. The safe ship was not safe at all. It was too late for the Titanic, but it was not too late for other ships. New safety laws were passed. Many changes were made. Today, every ship must have enough lifeboats for every single passenger, and every ship has lifeboat drills so people know what to do when there is an accident. Well, the Titanic was going to have a drill the day before the collision, I believe it was, but it was canceled at the last moment. I think it was because it was on a Sunday, and the Titanic had a church on the ship, and back then everybody was religious. So they weren't going to cancel service to have a drill. Boom. Chapter 4, Found at Last. Ship radios can never be turned off. Every call for help is heard, and now there is a special ice patrol. Patrol airplanes keep track of dangerous icebergs that they warn ships. Never again can an iceberg take a ship by surprise. The Titanic was a terrible loss, but the world learned from it. Years went by. The Titanic lay many miles down in black, icy cold water. No divers could go down in such deep water, and no one could even find the ship. The map below shows you roughly where the Titanic sank. Right off, a bit off the coast of Newfoundland in the North Atlantic Ocean, where it is terribly cold water. Some people thought the Titanic had been crushed. They said it was probably a million pieces, yet treasure hunters kept on dreaming of the wonderful ship. They were sure there was gold on board and diamonds and pearls. A man named Robert Ballard dreamed of the Titanic too. Robert was a scientist. He studied the oceans. Robert worked in a famous laboratory in Woods Hole, Massachusetts. He didn't care about treasure. He just wanted to find the ship. He thought about it for years. Robert had a special invention. It was a kind of underwater robot. His name was Argo. Argo could dive down very, very deep. It had lights and a video camera. It could skim along the ocean floor. It could take underwater video pictures, and it could send them to TV screens on the ship. Wabam! Robert read all about the Titanic. He looked at maps and photos. Finally, he was ready. He thought he knew where the mystery ship was waiting. And in the summer of 1985, Robert sailed north of Newfoundland. He found a team. He went with a team of scientists. He took Argo with him. Robert said Argo hunting. He didn't even have to get his feet wet, but he had to do a lot of watching for days. It was the same. He saw sand and more sand. Then at last, something different flashed on the screen. Was it a ship? Yes, it was a ship, a huge ship. The other scientists began to cheer. They had done it. They had found the Titanic. Wabam! It's an accurate representation of me reading everything I can about Titanic. Robert could not believe his eyes. It was like seeing a ghost. There was the Titanic sitting on the ocean floor. It had broken apart, but Robert could see how beautiful it still was. Bam! And yes, Titanic is still well preserved for it being under the water for 114 years, I think it is. I mean, the bow, when she hit the ocean floor, she hit it so hard she broke her back. And she fared much better with the bow than she did with her stern, which completely just imploded as it went under. Over the days, Robert saw more and more of the ship. He saw the crow's nest where the lookouts were spotted the iceberg. A beautiful glass window lay in the sand. The ship's giant anchors were there. Bottles of wine were scattered about, and suitcases. It was amazing, and it was sad. So many people had set out on the voyage. So few had returned. Finally, Robert sailed home. He did not tell anyone where he had found the Titanic. He hoped the ship would stay just as it was. Well, how's that going for you? It's been visited by many people over the years. He did not want the treasure hunters to come and loot it. Robert wanted to go back to the Titanic, and a year later he did. He landed a small submarine right on the deck of the Titanic. He sent a robot inside the ship. Bam! Robert did not take anything, but he did leave something behind. It was a message. He left it for anyone else who might find the Titanic. It asked that the great ship be left in peace. All over the world, people are thrilled by Robert's work. To some, it was very special. They had sailed in the Titanic. They had been small children then. Now they were very old. But they had never forgotten the unsinkable Titanic. The world would never forget. Bam. The end. And that was the Titanic Lost and Found, the book that got me first started with my obsession of Titanic, and how it became the one of the biggest special interests of this autistic fool. And I hope you enjoyed watching me read this book and showing you the illustrations from the book. I know that it might be kind of boring because you just sat there watching me sit here and read a book. But I hope to do really to make this a video series where I read from all my collection of Titanic books. I have almost a dozen. So many books, so much knowledge, so many photographs of different things. It's just a fascinating thing to learn about, even though it's not as special as people might think it is, because the Titanic was already practically outdated by the time it actually went out for its maiden voyage. But somehow it's taken hold of some people's fascination, myself included. I love Titanic, and as much as I am obsessed with it and love learning about it, I never want to go look at it. I don't want to go visit Titanic. I think it would break my heart to see the shape that it's in now, and the fact that knowing in about 20 or 30 years it's expected to just completely collapse from itself, and it'll just be a pile of rubble, which just breaks my heart for how beautiful she was when she first set sail, and how long she's been there and holding up against all odds. That soon she'll be gone, just a pile of wreckage. And I also just think it's not right to go there. Finding her the first time in 1985, that was understandable. People were curious. They wanted to know what happened. They wanted to know if it was still there. And they proved it was there, and that it broke in half. I think after that, people just began taking advantage of the fact that it was there. They can go and look at it like it was a museum piece. When really it was the final resting place of so many people who were still stuck inside the ship, and people who quite likely it did not make it to the bottom of the ocean because of the pressure and everything. They were crushed. They were crushed. There was nothing. There was nothing left of them to make it to the ocean floor. Nothing but their clothes. So in many ways, it is their final resting place. It's a graveyard, and to go there, people who take things from there and put them in museums, it's just not. It's just not right, in my opinion. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed learning about Titanic. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.